Heyo everyone, it's FreakyDude99 and today I deliver an Arc Warlock build that is sure to make you go, nice. The endgame build is a monster when it comes to PvE, as the insane ability regen means you're constantly throwing lightning strikes and jolting your enemies. It's perfect to close the season with, whether you're getting your Grandmaster Nightfalls completed or just trying to finish the Embargo engine puzzles. This build will make anything a breeze for you and your allies. Of course, if you need a picture of the build, there's one at the end of the video, along with a dim link in the description for easy copying. Without further ado, let's jump into the build. Beginning with the subclass, we have our Super Chaos Reach for massive focus damage on champions and bosses. Make sure to stun your champion before using it, and then when you do, try to line up the beam to hit enemies behind your main target for some extra orbs of power. Now for our Rift, we're taking Healing Rift as we are in PvP and looking to take on master level activities. The bonus to survivability is always worth it and makes holding down a plate or an objective a lot more easier. Then for our melee, we go ahead and grab Ball Lightning. Having that extra range over Chain Lightning is important, as getting close in harder content could mean the end for us. Being amplified will also make the ball strike 3 times for more damage, so make sure to check that you're amplified before throwing it out. Then for our grenade, we take Pulse Grenade for its really strong damage. It's perfect to throw on a stunned champion or in a group of enemies to clear them out. We get our grenade back really quickly so we can afford to take the higher cooldown, as we just spam these everywhere. And then for our first aspect, we have Electrostatic Mind. So our arc ability takedowns and enemies affected by Jolt or Blind create Ionic Traces, and then Ionic Traces make us amplified. It's a must-use aspect and allows us to generate insane amounts of Ionic Traces, which they themselves track towards us and give 12.5% grenade and melee energy and 15% rift energy. So being able to create lots of them means we get our abilities back super quickly and can spam them as much as we want. We also become amplified at all times because the traces are everywhere, so our Ball Lightning does get its bonus pretty much constantly. And then for our second aspect, we have Arc Soul, so when we cast our Rift, we create an Arc Buddy for us and anyone who steps through the Rift. The Arc Buddy lasts for 15 seconds and is pretty strong, especially when you're amplified. The buddy takedowns count as arc ability takedowns, so it works with Electrostatic Mind, but it doesn't count as ability damage for things like Monochromatic Maestro. Either way, the buddy is amazing for consistent damage and final hitting enemies for Ionic Traces, and it just gets even better when you amplify it. For our first fragment, we have Spark of Discharge, so our arc weapon final blows create Ionic Traces. It works by filling a meter depending on the rank of the defeated enemy, but you'll at least get an Ionic Trace every 3 enemy takedowns. Then Spark of Magnitude will increase our pulse grenades to 8 pulses from 6 for the sweet extra damage that gives. Spark of Resistance gives us 25% damage resist while within 15 meters of at least 3 enemies. With how ad-dense activities are nowadays, you'll always be benefiting from this. And then Spark of Shock, so our Pulse Grenade applies Jolt for some big damage, especially on stunned champions. And that'll do for the subclass. On to the weapons. For our main weapon of choice, I've been personally loving Trinity Cool, as it's anti-barrier bows this season and it gets that overcharged buff. It's arc as well, so it creates Ionic Traces through Spark of Discharge, and it's just super fun to use in low to mid level content. Grandmasters is where its power will taper off, but up to that point it's awesome. Cold Heart is also really good in low to mid content. Unfortunately, it doesn't stun champions this season, but it's still great in content where there aren't any present, as it can generate a crazy amount of Ionic Traces, so be sure to just hop into a strike playlist to try it out. Now for a weapon you probably haven't used in forever, Symmetry. It's surprisingly powerful and is perfect for a ranged arc weapon to take into Grandmaster Nightfalls, where you're usually playing a lot safer and from a distance. I highly recommend giving it a shot, as it sure as hell surprised me. Now since we primarily use an arc weapon, our kinetic slot is mostly used for champion stunning weapons. If we can do it, we ideally use a fusion rifle with the unstoppable rounds, so Deliverance and Riptide are great stasis fusion rifles, and then Pressurized Precision and Nox Perennial V are solid strand ones to use. If we choose not to use an exotic energy weapon, then some solid legendary choices are Ikelos SMG with Feeding Frenzy and Volt Shot, and then Tripwire Canary with Explosive Head and Archer's Tempo. They are both solid arc weapons you can get from the exotic Seraph Station mission. And then if you played during Season of Plunder, you have Tarnished Metal, which is a scout rifle that can roll Demolitionist Bolt Shot, which is shockingly good. And then for our heavy weapons, we run an Arc Heavy Machine Gun. This season has a decent one being Eliatic Principle, but its rolls are a little subpar. If you have Terminus Horizon, the Swarm, or Plank Stride, they are all great as they can roll stuff that helps out with their ammo economy and then give them some big extra damage like Target Lock or One for All. And that'll do for the weapons. Now on to the artifact perks, where we can pick up 4 anti-champion weapon perks. These give overcharge to the weapons as well, which give them a 25% damage boost in legend and higher activities. Then we grab Origin Perk Specialization 1, which enhances the origin traits on weapons from Season of the Witch, Season of the Deep, Crota's End, and Lightfall. These enhancements can be pretty big, so it's worth having. We also grab Origin Perk Specialization 2, so those same weapons get the overcharged buff. And then Elemental Orbs Arc, so we can cause more carnage and just jolt more enemies. Column 4, we grab Overload Machine Guns to help stun champions and for the overcharged buff on our machine guns. Then Elemental Fury for the 35% increased ability damage and 75% increased elemental orb damage on stunned champions, so always wait to stun a champion before blasting them with your grenade and melee. Then, if you're using a bow or scout rifle, make sure to grab Semi-Auto Striker so you can generate armor charges from a distance. It helps a lot in Grandmaster Nightfalls where you can't pick up an orb of power all the time. If you're not using this, then go and grab Refreshing Pickups for 33% ability energy to your least charged ability when you pick up an elemental orb. And then for column 5, we grab Monochromatic Maestro for the almost constant 10% increase to ability and arc weapon damage when we're dealing damage with the opposite type. And then Elemental Embrace for a plus 50 in recovery and 50% arc damage resistance while we are amplified, which we pretty much are constantly. This helps so much with survivability as well as ensuring our recovery stat is as high as possible. And that'll do for the artifact perks. Time to finish with the armor and mods. For our helmet, we have the exotic Fallen Sunstar, and its trait Ionic Conductor enhances our Ionic Traces by increasing their speed and doubling their ability energy granted. So you get 25% grenade and melee energy and 30% rift energy on Ionic Trace pickup. Nearby allies also get 10% ability energy whenever you pick up a trace. It's a simple exotic that becomes so broken with this build. The constant ability energy we are getting makes it so much fun to spam pulse grenades and balls of lightning everywhere. Then for our mods, we go ahead and grab Harmonic Siphon so arc weapons can spawn orbs of power, Ashes to Assets so all our grenade takedowns give extra super energy, and Font of Wisdom for a plus 30 in intellect while we have an armor charge. These mods ensure we get our Chaos Reach back really quickly and can spam it near constantly. And then for stat focusing, we want 100 resilience for the 30% damage resistance. Second, we want to focus discipline so we can throw out as many pulse grenades as possible. And then finally, we want to get our recovery stat to 50, but not higher, as we have Elemental Embrace which already gives 50 recovery, so we don't want to waste any stats by having it any higher than this. Anything else can go into strength. Onto our gauntlets, we go ahead and grab Firepower so grenade takedowns generate orbs of power, and then Bolstering Detonation for 20% rift energy on grenade damage, and Impact Induction for 20% grenade energy on melee damage. These have a 7-second cooldown, but pulse nades can hit at the initial blast and the last pulse with Spark of Magnitude to give 2 instances of energy. For our robes, we go ahead and grab 2 elemental resistance mods for 25% damage resistance against the activity's threat modifier. So if it's a solar threat, we go ahead and grab double solar resistance, and then for the third mod, we get 15% damage resistance for whatever we can afford. If we can, we go concussive dampener, but if not, we just grab another elemental resistance. For our legs, we get double arc weapon surge for a 17% arc weapon damage increase while we have an armor charge, and then we grab recuperation for health on orb of power pickup, which always comes in handy no matter what content. And then for the bond, we grab bomber and outreach for 20% grenade and melee energy while we cast our rift, and then time dilation so our armor charges decay every 15 seconds rather than 10. And that does it for the build, and I have to say it's a great one to take into next season, as even without the artifact perks, it'll work wonders. We are constantly amplified, running around with our Arc Buddy as we jolt and rain lightning on everything that comes in our way. We have amazing ability in super regen, so at every big encounter we can throw out a Chaos Reach while generating tons of Ionic Traces for infinite amounts of pulse grenades and ball lightnings. This is a perfect build for taking on Grandmaster Nightfalls for that Gilded Conqueror, or just finishing off seasonal challenges for that Bright Dust package. If you need a picture, there's one on screen as well as a dim link in the description for some easy copying. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the build, and I'll see you in the next one. FreakyDude99 out.